Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Ingenuity, the little helicopter that flew on Mars, defied all the expectations, and just refused to quit.
But you know what? We're actually going to start this story right in the middle of a crisis. Picture this. It's 427 days into a mission that was only supposed to last like a month. And for the team back on Earth, it's turned into an absolute nightmare. Their tiny helicopter, 297 million kilometers away, has just gone silent, vanished, right in the middle of a brutal Martian winter. So, to really get how we ended up in this crazy situation, we've got to rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of Ingenuity's, well, pretty improbable journey. Because you see, this was never supposed to be some big, flashy flagship mission. Nope. It was a scrappy little tech demo that honestly, almost nobody believed.
So Ingenuity, or Ginny as the team called her, was definitely not the star of the show. I mean, just look at the numbers. Her entire budget was a mere $80 million. Now that sounds like a lot, but compare that to the Perseverance rover's budget, a whopping $2.5 billion. To put that in perspective, Ginny's entire mission cost less than it did to make the movie The Martian. Yeah, seriously.
And it wasn't just a budget thing. A lot of people at NASA flat out saw it as a distraction. The mission's own project scientist, Kenneth Farley, even said he was personally opposed to it. His argument? A little tech demo like this doesn't really push the science forward. The bottom line was, they thought it was a potential waste of very, very precious time.
So how do you even build a Mars helicopter on a shoestring budget? Well, the team got creative. They built this thing using parts that are surprisingly familiar. We're talking about a processor from an old Samsung Galaxy S5 smartphone. The batteries, the kind you'd find in a cordless drill. And the sensors for navigation, straight out of a Google Pixel 3. This was, truly a DIY space mission.
Okay, so they built it. But before Ginny could prove all the doubters wrong, it had to overcome the single biggest challenge of all: just flying. This was it. This was its Wright brothers moment. The big question was, could they actually achieve powered, controlled flight on a whole other planet for the very first time in human history?
And the main problem, the huge problem, was the atmosphere, or the lack of it. Mars's air is just so incredibly thin. We're talking 1% as dense as what we have here on Earth. So to get any lift at all, Ginny's blades had to spin at a mind-boggling 2,400 rotations per minute. It was a massive engineering hurdle, and frankly, nobody was totally sure it could even be done.
So, Ginny lands on Mars back in February 2021, still attached to the Perseverance rover. Then it gets deployed onto the surface. And then they wait for 2 long months. That's 58 Martian days, which they call sols. The team back on Earth ran every single check you can imagine. And then, finally, the moment of truth arrived. And she flew. It worked. The first ever powered, controlled flight on another planet was a success. And it didn't stop there. Within a month, Ginny nailed all 5 of its planned test flights. Mission accomplished, right? The team was ready to celebrate, maybe hit the bar. But then, NASA came back with a totally unexpected new order. Don't stop. Keep flying.
So just like that, the tech demo was over. Ginny now had a real job, an operational scout for the Perseverance rover. But this new role meant it was flying into totally unknown territory, and it was about to face a whole new series of life-threatening challenges on the Red Planet.
Think about this. There's no GPS on Mars. So how does Ginny know where it's going? It has to fly completely on its own. The way it works is actually pretty clever. It basically acts like an old optical mouse. There's a camera pointing down that snaps 30 pictures every single second. It looks for features, rocks, craters, whatever. Then it tracks how those features move from one frame to the next to figure out exactly where it is and how fast it's going. But that system wasn't foolproof. On its 6th flight, the very first one into brand new territory, a software glitch caused it to miss a single image, one picture, and that one dropped frame threw the entire navigation system into chaos. The helicopter started wobbling like crazy, getting caught in this dangerous positive feedback loop. It came this close to a death spiral before it somehow managed to pull off an emergency landing. Okay, so Ginny survived the software bug. But a much bigger, much more dangerous threat was on the horizon, the Martian winter. And you can see the danger just by looking at its power budget. Flying, that only used up about a quarter of its battery. The real power drain, a massive 75%, was just for staying warm, running the heaters to keep its guts from freezing solid in the negative 85-degree nights. And as that winter got worse, The heaters just couldn't keep up. The battery completely drained. And that brings us back to where we started. On day 427, the team lost contact. Total silence. The question hanging in the air back at JPL was a terrifying one. Did we just lose our helicopter on Mars? Is this it? Is the mission over?
But the team didn't give up. They went through every single possibility and came up with one single brilliant hypothesis. What if a total power loss reset Ingenuity's internal clock? If that happened, and if it somehow survived the deep freeze, then maybe it wasn't dead. It was just waking up at a completely different time than they were listening for. So they did the math, adjusted their listening window, and sent it ping at the new calculated wake-up time, and it worked! She was alive! Can you imagine the relief? But the victory was short-lived. The extreme cold had taken its toll. A super important sensor, the inclinometer, the thing that tells the helicopter which way is up before it takes off, was fried, totally dead. So now the team has a whole new impossible problem. How in the world do you fly a helicopter when you don't even know which way is up? But again, they came up with a clever workaround, using those other phone-grade sensors to figure it out. And they got Ginny flying again, pushing her harder and further than ever before, until one last fateful flight.
It was Flight 72. Ingenuity was coming in for a landing over a field of sand dunes. But remember that optical mouse analogy? Well, sand dunes are like a blank sheet of paper. The navigation camera couldn't find any features, nothing to lock onto. It completely lost its visual reference, got confused, and it came down hard. But when they investigated the crash, something was weird. There were no marks on the ground from the blades hitting the sand. The blades hadn't hit the ground at all. They'd snapped clean off in midair. What happened? Well, the culprit was a quirky little physics principle called precession. The easiest way to think about it is with a spinning hula hoop. If you push it on one side, the hoop doesn't tilt right there. It actually tilts 90 degrees later in the direction it's spinning.
So here's the catastrophic chain reaction that took place in a split second. The hard, angled landing created a sudden upward force on the helicopter's body. Because of precession, that force created a powerful twisting torque on the two counter-rotating blades. This torque forced the blades to flex in opposite directions way beyond their structural limits, until they just snapped, ripped apart right in the middle of the air. And so Ingenuity's flying mission was over. But even in its end, its success had already fundamentally changed how we think about exploring other planets. It created a truly remarkable legacy.
Everything they learned from Ginny's weak spots, the fragile blades, the fact it couldn't talk to Earth on its own, all of that led directly to the design of its successor, a new helicopter called Chopper. And just look at the upgrade, 6 rotors instead of 2. It's a fully independent spacecraft that can carry a whole science payload. This thing is a total game changer, and it's all thanks to the lessons learned from little Ginny.
And think, it all started with this little underdog helicopter that nobody believed in. There's this one last beautiful detail. Attached to the underside of Ingenuity is a tiny scrap of fabric from the original 1903 Wright Flyer, a physical link connecting the very first flight here on Earth to the very first flight on a whole other world. And get this, incredibly, even after that violent crash, Ginny's main system survived. The helicopter that just refused to quit still hasn't. Its flying days are over for sure, but it's still operating as a stationary weather station, beaming back data every single day. So it leaves us with one final amazing question. Even from its final resting place, broken on the Martian sand, what will its next message teach us?